Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Dylan Moglin. I'm going to be your guys' mediator today. I want to start before anything to thank you guys for joining me today for mediation. Some of you may be familiar with mediation, some of you may not, but by choosing to engage in this process, you've taken a first step towards opening up dialogue and exploring solutions. And so I want to thank you both for agreeing to be here today. Before we get into a quick description of what mediation is and how today's mediation is going to proceed, I'd like to ask you both very quickly to just give me a very quick intro, your name, any pronouns if you'd like to include them, and what you'd like to be referred to as during this mediation. Who would like to begin?
I am Sarah, and I am living in the community.
And can I call you Sarah? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Perfect. Pleasure to meet you, Sarah.
Thank you. Yes. And yeah, my name is Michael. I am Sarah's neighbor.
Okay. And can I refer to you as Michael?
Yes.
Perfect. Well, thank you both, Sarah and Michael, for being here today. So I'd like to go ahead and quickly explain my role here as the mediator. So my job today is to work with you guys to facilitate a dialogue to kind of, open better understanding and explore mutually agreeable solutions. I'm not a judge or a lawyer. I'm not here to pass judgment or determine right and wrong. I'm just here to help guide along the dialogue and conversation process. Today, we're going to be working in a mix of group sessions where we're working all together, or we may end up working in smaller individual sessions called caucuses. But the idea here today will be I will be working alongside you guys to get a better understanding of what's been going on and what might be some mutually acceptable ways of moving forward if that's what we do decide to do. A few quick notes about the mediation process for you guys to know. This is a completely voluntary process. If at any times you are uncertain or you would like some greater clarification on the process, please do not hesitate to let me know, either via chat or verbally, whatever you feel most comfortable with. I do want to note that this process is 100% confidential. So that means that I will not share anything that you have mentioned during this process, and nothing that you have said here can be used outside here in any kind of court setting. You may notice during this mediation that I might be taking notes. These notes are just for me to keep reference, and they will be destroyed afterwards. No notes are shared with anyone else. So I also ask you guys as part of that confidentiality not to record this process unless that's something you both would like. So if you have any phones on, I would ask you to silence them and put them aside for this process. Obviously, if something urgent comes up, don't hesitate to let me know. Okay. Um, how does mediation work? So over this next hour and a half, we're going to start by kind of hearing both of your perspectives, explore what's been going on, gain a better understanding. We're going to work to kind of clarify what your guys' needs are and what is most important to you both in this situation. And then we're going to work together to try and seek solutions that really emphasize these needs and are mutually agreeable to you both. As we do that, we'll look at what the next steps would be, and if necessary, we may set a plan for follow-up by the end of this mediation. During the mediation process, I'm going to ask you guys to keep an open mind and to be as respectful as possible. I know that, there may be some tensions and there may be a lot of heavy emotions. Cursing is totally okay if you need to let that out, but I do ask you not to use abusive language towards each other. With all of that having been said, are there any questions you have about the mediation process or anything you'd like to know before we get started? No? Great. Okay, so I'm going to ask us to start out today by just sharing a little bit about what's been going on. I'm going to ask you each to go ahead and just share with me what the situation has been, what's been going on, and what your perspective on all of this is. I'm going to ask us to do this one at a time. Is there anyone who'd like to start us off? I know, oh, Michael, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I feel like, since Sarah is the one who requested for this, it will make sense for her to start.
Absolutely. Sarah, are you comfortable with that?
Sure, fine. So I moved into the Maplewood subdivision about 3 years ago because it had a great reputation of being calm and family friendly. And so in the beginning, everything was fine. But recently, my neighbor, who's Michael, really started having more and more loud parties. That noise is going like super late into the night. And I had tried to let him know that, I'm a single mother and I work at home. And so, my kids and I are trying to sleep. And so, I mean, this noise just like will not quit. And then it just keeps getting worse. And then he's got a fire pit in the yard, and they are like, I don't know what they're burning, but that smoke is going all over the place. And you know that smoke is toxic. And so, especially, during the summertime, we might have the windows open, and one of my kids has asthma, and so that black smoke is going into the house. We can't sleep. It is so loud. And then he put a fence in, which I can't believe he didn't even say anything about it, and it's in my property line. And so this has just got to stop. I need peace and quiet. I need my kids to be safe. And it's just been getting worse. It's intolerable.
Okay. Thank you for sharing, Sarah. I want to quickly take a moment before I turn over to you, Michael, to just reflect back to you, Sarah, some of what I've heard. So I hear to you that some of the really big concerns here are, we've had these loud parties that have been keeping you and your kids up, making it really difficult to sleep. I hear that you had some health concerns as well about all of the smoke that's been coming in and your son's well-being, especially with that question of asthma. I also heard you mention, that the family safety and security was important for you to move when you moved in, and that now you're feeling a little uncertain about what's been going on and all of this noise and all the smoke. I also heard you mention this issue about the fence. Can you just clarify for me? So you mentioned that fence is on your property?
Yeah, so as I said, I moved in the last couple of years, and so when I bought the property, I have the elevation report, which I had to have to get property insurance. And so, according to my documents, that fence is over the property line. And he didn't even talk to me about it. And so it's just, I just
Okay.
can't believe that he would do that.
I'm hearing that you're a little taken aback that you weren't consulted or asked about this, about the fence, and that you feel that Michael didn't do his due diligence in talking to you before making this decision, which must be really frustrating. I appreciate everything you shared. Michael, I'd love for you to quickly share your thoughts on what's been going on, kind of share your perspective, and then I want to open up the dialogue to both of you based on what I've heard.
Sarah, give me. Okay, perfect. If I'm being honest, I am surprised that we are in this mediation. You know, I have lived in this neighborhood for a very long time. And when Sarah moved in, I thought we were, I thought we had a good relationship, a friendly relationship with Sarah. And then over time, I began receiving text messages complaining about the noise, which the noise she complained about is the normal social gathering that I don't do during weekdays. I only have those social gatherings during weekends. And it's not a large gathering, but it's just the way we, the community or members of the community, have been living in this neighborhood
Yes.
well before
Here, we could work on them this afternoon.
let's see, well before Sarah moved in here, right? Moved into this neighborhood. And for me, the beginning of a new relationship or this hostile relationship that I feel like Sarah is giving me was when I received a letter, a complaint letter from HOA. And the reason why that was so difficult for me is I felt like if, let's say, there is something wrong, why did she go to HOA as opposed to coming to talk with me first, right? And then after receiving that complaint from the HOA, one time during our social gathering, weekend social gathering, police showed up, which I think Sarah called those police on me. And I am at a point where I feel like I cannot do anything in my home. I am being policed, I am being watched, and I hope Sarah and I can have a honest discussion during this mediation because number one, I want to enjoy my home. Number two, I don't want to feel like I am being watched. And overall, I don't want to have problem with my neighbor. That's all.
Thank you for sharing, Michael. I want to do the same that I did with Sarah and quickly repeat back some of what I've said to make some of what you said to make sure that I've correctly captured your thoughts and to see if there's anything else you want to add. So, um, I hear from you the kind of frustration of what over what sounds like there's been some difficulties in communication for you. You feel that there have been some incidents where you feel there hasn't been direct communication, and that you feel that there has kind of been limiting of your use of your own space, correct? You've mentioned kind of the desire to want to be able to use your space the way you want to. You've mentioned that you do have these parties, but on the weekends. Um, and you've mentioned that you've had some disappointment about the way in which communication has occurred between you and Sarah, that you feel that you had wanted more, you would have wanted more direct communication with you, and that you have been feeling a little um, upset about these incidents that have happened where the HOA has come and where the police have come, and that this has further kind of contributed to your feeling that you haven't been able to use your space the way that you would like to.
Mm-hmm.
Am I capturing that correctly? Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, it's not a party. It is just a social gathering. And
Okay,
number two, I am still upset up to now, you know.
I
And
hear you.
I hope we find solution. And I want us to find solution.
Okay. Well, thank you both for sharing. Sarah, I realized I didn't get a chance to ask you in my recap if there was anything else you would want to add. And I also want to take this opportunity to kind of open up the conversation because I hear from both of you that this question of respect and communication is really important. Um, and I've heard us identify several really important priorities. You know, Sarah has talked about concerns over her health, both in terms of sleep and for her kids. I've heard that, Michael, you want to talk a little bit more as well about the use of space. And I do hear from you that you would like to have an amicable relationship, but that you do feel that communication would need to be improved. I want to start with that communication question. What would better communication for the two of you look like?
Well, just hold on a second, okay? Because, yeah, He says that he is disappointed and feels limited in his use of space. I'm limited in my use of space. I don't even feel safe in my own home anymore. I have to work at home. I am trying to create a peaceful environment to bring up my kids. I tried to communicate with him. All right. I mean, I had tried multiple times. And as he said in the beginning, everything was fine. I had tried to text him about the noise. He didn't even answer. I mean, he totally dismissed it. And so I tried multiple times to reach out to him and like, listen, okay, I'm of the generation that we used to just pick up, dial the phone and talk to people. And I know that, people don't do that anymore. So I'm trying to follow the way people do things now by sending a text and not just knocking on the door. Although he could knock on my door because I'm home all the time. But I tried to communicate with him. And so really, he totally ignored anything that I was trying to say to him. He did not engage in communication with me. I'm the one that was trying to reach out to him. And so, really, honestly, I'm sorry that I even wrote that letter. I mean, as far as the home reaching out to the homeowners association, but you know what? I didn't know what else to do because this is like damaging my mental health as far as dealing with this noise, worrying about what he's up to and what's happening, and is he going to break out in a big rage? And so, it's just he stopped. And then after that, he totally cut off any communication from me. And so, and I got to say, I am not the one that called the police. All right. He may think so, but I am not the one that called the police. And so, actually, what does that mean? That just means that other people in the neighborhood are upset about his noise too from his parties. And so, it's damaging the situation, but I want a peaceful home environment. I want to feel safe and secure in my home. And I totally get we all want to use our homes and have the freedom to do what we want to do. So I totally get that. But it's just that when you start infringing on the rights of other people, and I'm sorry, it is breaking the rules of the homeowner association. Otherwise, they wouldn't have sent him the letter. It's like the homeowners association has specific rules about quiet hours and about burning stuff in the backyard. And so this is not just me. And he's the one who cut off communication.
Sarah, I can hear from you that there is a lot of concern around this health, and I'm sorry, it must be very, very stressful to have to be so worried about your safety and security at home. I'm sure that that's not an easy process, and I can hear how frustrated you've been with this communication process, and that frustration has really led you to feel like there has been no other way of communicating with Michael. You mentioned that you texted Michael, and that you had received no response. Michael, having heard what Sarah said, I'd like to just ask you a little bit about what happened with communication from your perspective.
Mhm. I think that when I got a text message from her, I did not respond. And the reason why I did not respond was because number one, I felt like it could have been communicated better. And for me, my decision as to not responding was because I was trying to de-escalate, you know, or I was trying to avoid, say, pouring gasoline on fire. Because number one, I felt like the way that text message came, it was disrespectful to me, you know? And instead of saying, hey, you can't tell me what to do in my house, or instead of saying, you can,
You have got to stop gaslighting me. Excuse me, you're the one that's being disrespectful. That's not me, that's you.
how am I being disrespectful though?
Not even bothering to answer, blaring your music at all hours without a care in the world about anybody that's around you. Little kids that can get sick.
let's talk about that for a little bit. When you came into the neighborhood, we were having this social gathering. Are you saying the music like got louder? Like what happened? What changed?
Listen, I don't know who lived there before me. Maybe they were not, a family with little kids. Maybe they were not home all the time. But I don't know what to tell you. I mean, the music goes really loud until late at night. And I can't believe you're saying you're concerned about communication. You said yourself, you didn't even engage, you didn't even answer. So I'm the one that feels disrespected.
And I also told you why I didn't respond because I felt like I was, if I'd responded, it was only gonna make things worse. And I did not respond because I was not trying to make things worse. That's how I felt it. You may disagree with it, but that's how I felt it. You know.
I hear from both of you that this question of respect is really important, and that both of you feel that in the way that communication occurred, both of you were disrespected. And I also do want to acknowledge really quickly that both of you clearly feel that there has been a real breakdown here in terms of your ability to trust each other and feel respected in your communications. Michael, I want to go back to something you said a little bit earlier. You mentioned that you would have liked to see better communication. What does better communication look like for you?
I think better communication for me, if let's say the noise is music, better communication will be, hey Michael, I know it's already this hours, your music is really loud. Could you please turn it down? That is a better communication for me, right?
And agreed. And what would that look like for you?
It
Would
could be
that be
could be
by her
text
coming in?
message, it could be phone call, that. But for me, when you said turn down your music, that is not better communication, right? And I think before we even go to, let's say, the better communication, if it is okay with you, I want to ask Sarah clarification on, she said uh, the music is contrary to the quiet hours. I want to ask her what is the quiet hours? Because for me, to the best of my knowledge, the quiet hours as established is 10 p.m. And I try to turn down my music by 10 p.m. to be in compliance with that quiet hours. So I want to hear from her regarding that. And also, I want to hear more about, for example, this rule about burning things in the backyard that she says, you know.
Sarah, would you be willing to share a bit more with us? What are the rules of the HOA concerning the quiet hours and the burning of things?
So, again, like I moved in relatively recently, and so according to my handbook, the quiet hours during the week are from 8 o'clock, and yes, it's 10 p.m. on the weekends. But there's also municipal regulations that actually it is illegal to burn certain types of things in the yard, and so whatever he's burning is creating this black smoke. Um, and you just can't I mean, it's wafting into my house. And I mean, there's more and more research out there that this kind of black smoke is not good. And so if he could just have any kind of concern about that, um, especially like I said, I have to work at home. The kids have got to get up early to go to school. It's just, um, so again, the homeowners association wouldn't have sent a letter if he wasn't breaking the rules.
I hear you. And this question of the smoke is definitely a concerning one, especially since you've brought it up in terms of your kid's health and the fact that you've been at home. Michael, were you aware at all of these regulations concerning burning things? What are your thoughts when you hear this?
I think that my thoughts are the confusion surrounding banning things. I really don't ban things. I do have a fire pit in the backyard. And on Saturdays or weekend during our, social gathering, sometimes we set fire, right? And when we set in fire, we don't burn things that, let's say, unreasonably produce smoke. The only thing that I can say, which I do not know how to control it, is if, say, the wind is blowing towards our house, I can't control that. All right. I cannot control where the wind blow with the smoke. Right. So I guess maybe if we will have to figure out a way, because number one, I don't want to say I'm not going to use my fire pit. I don't think that would be fair for me. If she have a way of controlling the smoke, I'm open to hearing it. I I don't use my fire pit like every day, and I can commit to this mediation that, you know, we are only going to be using the fire pit, say on weekend, maybe once a week. And at that point, for example, to be on the safe side, she can say close our windows or something of that kind to reduce on the smoke inside.
Okay. Thank you for sharing, Michael. I'm hearing from both of you two really important things. Michael, I'm hearing you say that what's really important to you here is that you'd like to be able to continue using your fire pit. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, I have to. I have to continue using my fire pit.
And Sarah, I hear from your side what's really important to you is that the smoke, particularly this black smoke that's been causing these health issues, stop. For you, that's really important to make sure that your kids are not being affected by the smoke and that the health concern it presents to you be gotten rid of. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I mean, at my old house, I'll tell you, like, we had a very cute fire pit, and actually, it had a propane tank in it. So even if you don't have the gas lines going into the yard, it's just like the same kind of gas that you use for your barbecue. You just click a little switch and it turns on. It's actually much easier than putting a bunch of wood or whatever else in there and putting, kerosene on it. But I mean, I need that whatever it is, I need it to be predictable. Like I need to know what the schedule is so that we know in advance, because a lot of this stuff, it's like it's coming up at night. The kids are already in bed and they're already sleeping. And our weather, when it's nice, like we keep the windows open. That's one of the benefits of living in this area, because the climate is so nice. And so it's just, there's got to be some way, because the way it's happening now, it's like the kids are already in bed asleep and then we just notice it. So, there's got to be a schedule, or if he can look at some other kind of fire pit, seriously. I mean, there's got to be something else, because this is just disgusting.
So what I'm hearing from you, Sarah, is that you're okay with Michael using the fire pit, but what you would like is to explore options that don't produce the smoke. And you would like some kind of consistency in understanding when that fire pit is used, particularly in consideration of your kid's sleep schedule. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. Michael, what are your thoughts on this? Recognizing that, Sarah is okay with you continuing to use the fire pit and wants to really prioritize the reduction of smoke and figuring out a schedule. What are your thoughts?
Yeah.
What would that look like for you?
No, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. And of course, I don't want to put Sarah and kids in danger, right? And I definitely want to figure out a way of minimizing the amount of smoke that goes into her house. And if maybe say coming up with this with the schedule where she knows that okay, on this day there will be the, I don't want to use there will be smoke because sometimes if the wind is blowing this side, then the smoke is not gonna go to her house. If it's going, I guess the correct word I want to use is if she know that say on this day Michael is gonna use his fire pit, that can help, right? And I said I will only use my fire pit, say, once a week, either on Saturdays or Sunday during, the social gathering.
Thank you. Go ahead, Sarah. Sorry.
Well, okay, that's okay, right? But then what about the noise?
Mhm. For you, the issue was you said the music, like what is?
Well, I'm saying that's why I had started sending you messages earlier because your music was too loud. But I mean, the noise level is just, we can hear it. So if you're laying in bed, I can't sleep, the kids can't sleep. It's too noisy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So especially if you're sitting outside on the patio. And so that's the other thing is like, maybe it's when, you guys are sitting around outside in the backyard, that noise can carry so much more. Uh, so I can't concentrate. I can't sleep. I can't cope with this anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Please, I would love a copy of, say, the quiet hour. I mean, the bylaws or the quiet hour time frame that you talked about. And I definitely, once I have a copy of that, if it says by 8 weekdays there is no music, there will be no music by 8. If it says by 10 weekend there is no music, there will be no music. Like that, at least I can assure you. The only thing that I want you to also see it from my perspective is uh, I can regulate the music, that's for sure. And if, for example, let's say by 10 over the weekend and you're still hearing the music, just let me know. Please call me. I'll turn down the music.
Sarah, how does this sound to you? What I've heard from um, Michael so far is, Michael, you've said you'd like to receive a copy of the HOA rules,
Mm-hmm.
and that if the rules state clearly that you on weekdays by 8 p.m. need to observe quiet hours and weekends by 10 p.m., you are saying that you will make sure that there is no more music after those hours, and that if for any reason Sarah has a concern, that she should call you and that you will respond to her concern promptly. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Sarah, what are your thoughts?
That's fine. If he can comply with the HOA rules, and, I mean, I'll just say that, like, look, the rules are about quiet hours. It's not about separate talking versus music. I mean, the city has regulations too, and it has to do with decibels of noise. But if he will comply with the HOA rules, and if it's still problematic, I heard him say I can give him a call and he's going to respond favorably to that, then that's fine. I just need to know that it's not, he's not going to get all mad and whatever, because I can't deal with that kind of conflict. So if he says that I can give him a call and let him know, that's fine. We can do that.
Mm-hmm.
I hear from both of you that not wanting to escalate this situation is important. Michael, you said that a phone call would be the best way to contact you, and that is that the best way of contacting you versus another medium?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So
Yeah.
I think we have two big points here, right? We've talked about the music and we've talked about, what the rules that will be observed are. And we've talked a little bit about the fire pit. I didn't have a chance to clarify that real quick, but I just want to recap what I heard there as well, just to make sure I correctly understood. So, Michael, I heard from you that you are comfortable agreeing that you will use the fire pit once a week on Saturday or Sunday.
Mhm.
Um, do you know which day you would prefer? Is there a way you would like to communicate that to Sarah? What would be the easiest for you?
When you say which day, I would
Since you
prefer.
mentioned Saturday or Sunday, did you have a specific one in mind, or were you thinking it might change?
I think that I don't have a specific day, and I think right now, I the reason why, yeah, Saturday or Sunday, and at least Sarah now knows that Saturdays or Sunday there will be fire. If let's say I can maybe like text her, say during daytime that I'm gonna have a gathering in the evening and we're gonna use the fire pit. That way she knows. But if I'm being honest, there is some part of me that feels like, okay, just to be sure, texting does
Mhm.
not mean asking for permission. It is notifying, right?
Sarah, what are your thoughts?
Right. Okay. I mean, I think, like I said, that the important thing is just to have things be predictable and so that we know and so that we can just have a peaceful coexistence.
Mhm.
So as long as he can let me know, well in advance during the daytime, like meaning like before the kids go to bed, then we can know that we need to shut the windows. That I mean, yeah, if that's possible, then fine. We can do that.
Can I ask what time your kids go to bed?
Well, so usually they're in bed. They start getting ready for bed around 6:30, and they're usually in bed by 7. So, I mean, really, I would need to know before they eat dinner because then after
Okay.
that, they start getting ready for bed and they got to take their bath and stuff. And
Would
so
something
like
like,
we would need to know before 5. I mean, really, like he said, daytime. So,
okay. Michael, what are your thoughts? We're hearing that Sarah's responded to your proposal of texting her the day of to let her know that this is going to happen. And Sarah has asked if it would be possible to do that before 5. Do you think that would be something realistic for you? What are your thoughts?
I think for now we will, yeah, let's try doing that. And in case of anything, like, yeah, I want to commit to doing that. I
Okay.
want to commit to doing that.
When you say you want to commit to doing that, is there anything that makes you feel uncertain?
The only thing that makes me feel uncertain is it just kind of feels like I would have to be checking in. It kind of feels like it feels like in a way I can't enjoy my property without I don't yeah, no, I don't know, but I definitely feel like it sort of like make me feel a little bit tight, if that
Hmm.
if that makes sense.
I hear you. I hear
Sure.
you. And it can be complicated to have to plan some of these things out. What do you think would be necessary for you to feel more comfortable with this solution?
I think that number one, right now I can say I will use fire pit on the weekend.
Hmm.
On the weekend, that means it might be Saturdays, it might be Sunday, or it might be Saturdays and Sundays
Okay.
on the weekend. That is the foundation. And now I agree to texting, say, Sarah, for example, letting her know, but also in the event that, let's say, I did not text, she should also like text me to ask, hey, it's weekend. Are you guys gonna use that? Let's say, what if I forget? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I want it to be a reciprocal responsibilities.
Okay. So what I'm hearing from you, Michael, is are you would like to cement the use of the fire pits on weekends. You are comfortable with texting Sarah to let her know when things are happening, but you'd also like there to be a little bit of a two-way exchange between the two of you to
Yeah,
kind of keep in touch over what's going on.
right.
Um, Sarah, is that something you would be open to? What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, it's just, I feel like he doesn't even care about like whether like my kid has an asthma attack. Like he doesn't even care if he's like making our life a missing living hell for just like just being so difficult. And so I feel like he doesn't care.
Hmm.
I mean, about other people's health and safety and peace.
So I have a question before you jump in the mediator. You
Go
feel
ahead.
like I don't care because I said if I forget to text you to inform you, you should text me to ask if it's gonna happen. That makes me not care.
The whole thing. I mean, it's just all this time. I mean, really, because I'm not trying to make waves in this. I want a peaceful living situation. And so this is just so upsetting. And so I'm just trying to tell you I'm worried about our well-being. And it just feels like the whole time, like you don't even care. I mean, you just want to have your wild parties. And so that's just really hard to deal with.
I want to take a moment to recognize Sarah's concerns for her health and her kids' health, which I've heard from you, Michael, that, that's not something that you want intentionally. So,
Mhm.
I'd like to kind of go back to this question of the asthma and of the smoke, because I think that's where this really big health concern is. So I want to talk a little bit about what do we feel might be some ways of reducing that health concern? Because I can hear that's a big priority.
Let's leave that to Sarah. Like first, I really didn't know that your child have asthma. And number two, I'm not even saying I'm not saying no, you can't tell me what to do. I'm saying if I forget to notify you, you should also notify me. And I don't think that does not makes me a less caring neighbor.
I've heard from you, Michael, that you didn't previously know about Sarah's kid's asthma, and then I'm hearing a willingness from you to want to deal with this, and that you do kind of want to get a better understanding of how to improve this situation, but you do still want that communication going. Sarah, can I ask you, what would you feel should be done, or what would be necessary to make you feel safer, or to respond to these health concerns?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like I said, I mean, ideally he would stop burning that whatever he's burning in the backyard and look at other ways to have a fire pit. But I mean, I think the most important thing, I guess, is that we have a schedule, and so it's predictable, and so that we know when they're planning to do that. So I just don't get, woken up by my child coughing and struggling to breathe. So if we could just have a fixed schedule, that's probably the best thing.
Okay. Michael, what are your thoughts? Sarah has mentioned wanting to, explore options for either changing out what's being burned. Um, Sarah, I did want to ask you very quickly about this question on texting, right? The Michael texting you during the day to let you know when the fire would happen. Um, and also Michael asked the question about, whether or not you'd be comfortable texting him as well if you have any concerns or questions. I just wanted to put that question back to you. What are your thoughts there?
So yeah, I don't have a problem if he wants to send a message to say, hey, I'm having people over and we might be out in the back, you know. That's totally that's fine. I mean, I was just concerned that he sort of seemed like he was saying that, maybe he'd do it, maybe he wouldn't. And I can just call him up if there's a problem. But I mean, I just think it'd be better if we can try to avoid the problems in the first place. Um,
Agreed, and I can hear that the predictability aspect here is what you're really hoping to kind of cement. Michael, recognizing this, what do you feel about some of the solutions or some of the questions that Sarah has asked about both the fire pit and about trying to set a schedule to make sure that that she can plan and make sure that she's reducing the risk to her kids' health?
I think we are already in agreement that the fire pit will be used on the weekend.
Agreed.
The only thing that we haven't agreed to is the reminder. I said I will notify her in advance. And I also said in the event that say I forgot to remind her, she should also remind me. I'm saying let us create an environment where we both remind each other. And I think that is a healthy. I think that to me, I'm like, to me, I think that is really, I don't think that is too much to ask.
So, Michael, to recap what I've heard from you, what you're saying is that you are committing to informing Sarah on the weekends when you decide to use the fire pit and letting her know before this time of 5 p.m. Does that still work?
Yeah,
Okay. Before this time of 5 p.m., but that if in the case that you forget for any reason, you would like Sarah to call you, and then what? What would be kind of the next step for you? And, let's imagine, if we're going to play the if game, what do you think would be kind of your next step if Sarah calls you up and says, "Hey,
yeah.
are you
I mean,
using your fire pit? You didn't let me know."
sure. No, no, no. So, and you're using your fire pit. You did not let me know. That is what I'm trying to avoid because you're using your fire pit. You did not let me, you did not inform me. That is not preventing the problem. What I'm saying is before we get there, let's create an environment where we notify each other. Let's say on Saturdays. I forgot, we know that Francis is going to let me know have from morning to 5 p.m. It's going to let me know within this period of time whether or not it's going to use the fire pit. In the event that Francis did not let me know, I can also text him, call him, ask, hey, it is Saturday. Are you going to use your fire pit? Right? And then once I get that reminder, if I had not notified her, I have the reminder, then I can say, oh yeah, sorry, I forgot to inform you. Yes, I'm going to have fire pit today I'm going to have fire pit today. I forgot to
Okay.
inform you. Does that make sense?
So, just from my own understanding, what I'm hearing from you, Michael, is that what you would like to propose is that aside from you committing to texting her, if in the case that you forget, but you'd also like for Sarah to send you a text on the same day to ask you if you're going to be using the fire pit. So on the same day of the weekend, correct? Or at the start of the weekend? Could you clarify that? When
Yeah.
would you like that check-in from Sarah to come?
Oh yeah. I mean, on the like weekend, morning, it doesn't matter. Like, what? Let me figure out a way of. I commit to informing Sarah that
Hmm.
I'm gonna use weekend. That I'm going to, if I'm using the fire pit on the weekend. If I'm using it on Saturday, I will inform her Saturdays, or I will inform her Sundays. Like, you know what I
Okay.
mean? And then I'm also asking Sarah to, let's say, if on Saturday I have not informed her, for her to also ask me whether or not I will be using the fire pit.
On the same day.
Yeah,
Okay. Sarah, I'd like to ask you what your thinking on this is.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, we just need to have some peace. But I mean, just so that we're clear, this is not like on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday that this, oops, I forgot, is going to happen, right?
what do you
From
mean on Monday,
During
Tuesday?
the week, during the week.
Oh, whether I will use fire pit during the week?
Yeah.
No, I already said I'm not going to use
All
fire pit
right. All
during the
right.
week.
That's
okay.
fine. That's fine.
So what I'm hearing from both of you is that we've committed to Michael, you will not be using the fire pit during the week. You may be
Mm-hmm.
using it on Saturdays or Sundays. You are committing to messaging Sarah
Mm-hmm.
before 5 p.m., before her kids start to do their end of day routine to let her know, hey, we're going to be. But you would also like, if at the beginning of the weekend, um, and if I understood correctly, that would be something like Saturday morning, Sarah also reaches out just to check in with you.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that solution sound good to both of you?
It's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm okay with it. Yeah.
Okay. I want to go back to something that you had mentioned before, Sarah, because I want to make sure that I don't look over it. You had mentioned the issue of the fence. Would you be able to share with me one more time a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So he put up this fence, and based on my documents, it's in my property.
Okay. Michael, I'd love to hear what's been going on with the fence.
Yeah, I think there is a big misunderstanding about the fence.
Okay.
One thing which is true is I did not ask her permission to put up the fence. And the reason why I did not ask her is because to me, the document that I have, the fence is built on my property. And I didn't feel like it's necessary for me to ask her what I do on my property. If she thinks that the fence is on our property, I am okay with her. I can show her my documentation. She showed me her documentation, and then we figure out a way of bridging the inconsistencies in the information itself.
Okay. What might that bridging look like for you?
I don't know. Maybe we get a third surveyor. I don't know. I
Okay.
honestly don't know. I will be, yeah, I'd love to hear from her because just like I said, My documents, the fence is on my property. She said the fence is on our property. Then we have to figure out where the disconnect is coming from.
Okay. I've heard you say that what you'd like to do is kind of look at both documents and see what kind of resolution might be possible. I heard you mention maybe looking at something like a third surveyor.
Mhm.
Sarah, what are your thoughts on from what Michael said?
Yeah, that's fine. Because, like I said, I had my property surveyed pretty recently since I had to do it for my property insurance. So, um, like maybe we could meet at the HOA association and because they've also got documentation about all the property lines, and we can take a look at that because it looks to me like it's on my property.
Do you know if there's someone at the HOA who might be able to help accompany this process, as in provide the documents and kind of help look at those different
Well, I
documents and get
mean,
a better
like we said,
understanding?
I have documents. He said he has documents, so we can bring ours. But I'm saying they've got, there's somebody in the office all the time.
Okay.
And so, like I'm pretty sure also, because like I said, I mean, the rental office, like they've got all the documents for each one of the lots. And so I just think it'd be easier if we do it in their office because they've also got documents from when the community was built.
Michael, how would you feel about that, about doing this document sharing with the HOA and going down to the HOA office to do this?
Yeah, that's fine. That's
Okay.
fine. So Sarah, just to make sure I'm understanding, the issue is because you feel like I built that fence on your property or because I did not talk to you about it?
Well, it would have been a courtesy just to tell me that you're planning to build a fence. But I mean, the real issue is that the fence is on my property.
Mhm. Okay. So let's say we presented the document to the HOA and they said, the fence is on my property. What next? Or what then?
I'm sorry, whose property? Yours or mine?
Mine.
Well, if it's on your property, then that's fine.
Okay. What about if
And in the reverse
it's
case?
property? Yeah.
Well, that's not so fine. I mean, then we're going to have to figure something out.
Okay.
And what would be your preferred, if it turns out, and again, we don't know yet, but if it turns out that it is on Sarah's property, Sarah, what would you like to see be the next steps?
Well, I would like, if it's on my property, that he move the damn fence.
Okay. So are you comfortable with him then, if it turns out that it is on your property, moving it back to his side of the property? Would that be an acceptable outcome?
Yeah.
Okay. Michael, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. Um, that's a good question. I probably will be okay with that, but I don't think I will be able to afford it immediately. And I'm being very honest here. I'm being very honest. I just put the fence and it cost me 15,000 to put the fence, right?
Okay.
So I definitely, if she won the fence, let's say it turned out that the fence is on her property. Uh, all right. If it turned out that the fence is on, we are 605, I think. All right. I think
I'm
we're
going to
good.
wrap up.
Yeah.
You can finish your statement.
The statement is I commit to doing that, but I probably will not be able to do it immediately.
Okay. Okay, so I'm hearing from you that if in the case that the fence does turn out to be on Sarah's property, and again, we don't know yet, we have this first step of going to the HOA and looking at the documents and seeing where the fence is and on whose property. And I've heard, Sarah, you said if it's on Michael's property, you're okay leaving it there. And Michael, I'm hearing from you that if it turns out that it's on Sarah's property, you are open to moving it back to your property, but would like to explore with Sarah the possibility of doing it at a delay.
Yes, and
I
we can talk about that after.
Correct. I would like to come back to that, but I think we should plan for that for a second session.
Right.
What I'd like to do now is just really quickly recap everything we've talked about. I think we've made a lot of really good progress. I really appreciate everything that you guys have shared and your willingness to engage on these topics. A few really important points that I heard come out. So we have agreed on the use of the fire pit, that Michael, you will be able to use the fire pit on weekends.
Mhm.
But that you are also committing to informing Sarah by no later than 5 p.m. on weekend days,
Mhm.
whether or not you will be using the fire pit on the other day. And
Mhm.
Sarah, you have said that you are comfortable informing or reaching out to Michael at the beginning of the weekend to check in. I have also heard from you guys that, Michael, you have asked to receive a copy of the HOA rules,
Mhm.
um, and that based on those HOA rules, you are willing to commit to ensuring that there is no music being played after 8 p.m. on weekdays
Mhm.
and no music to be played after 10 p.m. on weekends.
Right.
And that if for any reason there is an issue, Sarah should call you, and that you are committing to promptly resolve that issue.
Yeah,
Is
just
that correct?
it's about not violating the noise regulations. So it it could be other noise too. It's not just music.
Okay. Okay. Has there been other, well, I would like to open that back up later and talk about what other noise there has been and see how we can add that into the agreement so far. Um, and then last but not least, we've talked about the step of going to the HOA office, doing a general document sharing and determining as a group where that fence is. And I'd like to kind of continue that conversation about how that's going to take place and then what the next steps would be in our next mediation. So again, thank you guys. I will write up all of the notes that we just mentioned, and I will bring them back to our next mediation so that we can start with these same points if everything I've said sounds correct to everyone.
Mhm. Thank you. Yes, everything is fine with me.
Sarah,
Yeah, that's fine.
great. Thank you both, and I'll close it there.
All right. Well, thank you so very much, Dylan. And I know that we are running tight on time, so let's transition immediately to our debrief. And at this point, we are going to open the floor to our coaches to, maybe ask Dylan a question or two so that Dylan can walk us through some of his thought process. And I turn the floor to our coaches today.
Well, I have a question. Dylan, you asked a great question early on, and you asked what good communication looked like for Sarah, and she just moved back into the past. And I wonder what you were thinking right then.
Um, So the purpose of the question was to try and kind of get a better sense of how can we restore a little bit of trust and communication, especially as the foundation for this. And what I got was Sarah went back to health concerns and basic needs and really made it clear this is you know, I feel threatened. This is a bigger problem. It's threatening my safety. And for me, it felt like, okay, she's really, really focusing on the safety and security question, and I'm not really going to be able to get to deeper conversations about psychological needs until I find a way to kind of address and validate those initial safety and security needs. So I ended up deciding to kind of shelve that for a little bit because I didn't feel we would be able to, it wasn't going to be as effective to try and go back on it when she clearly was very concerned about certain specific needs.
Yeah. Okay, that was my only question.
I have a question too for you, Dylan. Do you have any sort of, I don't know what the right word is, but almost like a fear of asking questions so openly to parties before knowing what they're going to say or how they're going to react, assuming that you don't know these parties?
Um, Could you re-ask your question
Yeah.
real quick?
So no, of course. And I this also it's gonna vary from case to case, but do you have any kind of like worry, hesitation? Fear isn't the right word, but I like to be like, oh my God, I'm scared of that. So that's kind of
Yeah.
where I'm coming from in that sense. But of asking openly, like, well, what do you want from this? Or what's your suggestion? And then what if they suggest something that's horrible, or they turn around and they're like, I don't have any suggestions, I just hate them. Like from like the like a very like, are you scared of a negative reaction or like an
Not
outburst or something like that?
Not necessarily. I'm not necessarily scared of a negative reaction against me. I am occasionally concerned about, if I see that parties are escalating, I don't want to ask a question that's going to completely get them to throw aside a conversation that's already occurred. And so I think later in the mediation, there were moments with Sarah where I was like, there are topics I want to go back to, but I am not really sure if reopening them is going to help continue the flow of dialogue or if it's going to end up kind of opening a wound again that I'm not quite sure we're at yet. So I don't know if that answers your question. There is a part of me that, yes, wants to avoid unnecessary kind of possible escalation in certain places, but I'm not necessarily concerned about asking a party to propose ideas and it turns out to be totally unacceptable to the other person. That at least for me would mean that there's a deeper conversation of I don't like that. Let's find something else and then ask, okay, if that doesn't work,
Mhm.
what might be some other options?
That's a great approach. It's a very confident approach. And I don't mean so much scared of you as a mediator, but scared of their reactions or scared of the person listening on the other side's reaction is more so what I was going at, but you completely answered that. Thank you.
I suppose it could be my turn. I thought you did a great job initially going over the rules and the subject and so forth. I thought was very good. Um, you use the word process when you're talking about mediation. Why do you use that word?
That is a good question. Um, I am not sure. I genuinely am not. That's very interesting. So I know some of the way in which I think about alternative dispute resolution has been a little bit of process oriented and I can't remember where I have in my notes somewhere being tough on people in process and thinking about that term of mediation as a sort of process that we're accompanying people through this dialogue process. But whether or not that's a good way of putting it, I actually don't know. Your question has raised within me an uncertainty as to why I do it.
I think many people speak like that, and so I always just sort of wondering why people choose to use the words they use in mediation, whether that's something that we learn in training and that we become really different or not in the actual practice of mediation. But I thought that processing people through the issues and breaking down the issues was really very, very good. I thought
Mm.
that was great. And I have two and a half pages of notes here. So maybe just one other the summations were very good. I thought going in, people talking, summing. What do you what is your basic approach as far as emotions are concerned? Separating emotions from actual options that people are building, which are not emotions. I mean, they certainly have emotions about them, but how does emotions play in your role as a mediator?
I think, and Francis and I got to talk about this earlier today by talking about needs. I think at the beginning of a mediation, validation of emotions is important to help people feel comfortable in the process. But as we get deeper into the actual exploration of what do people really want and what is their actual interests here, emotions also, for me, kind of become an indicator towards either certain psychological needs or a sense that something is not being addressed. And so for me, what I try to do, particularly in later stages of mediation, is when I hear that we're getting strong emotions, for me, it's a good moment to kind of try and dig in deeper. What is the unmet need here? What is the thing that's not being recognized or validated that is causing this emotion? And the reason I want to do that is I want to know, A, is this because there's a need that's not being met? Is it frustration with this process? Because if it's frustration with the process, then it may be a larger, it may actually, for me, be a point to say, you know what, this may actually be a time to transition into individual caucuses. Because it may be that at this point in the process, something is leaving this person feeling really frustrated. And I want to know I want to know what that's about. Because
Another question I had concerned individual sessions. I'm a person that doesn't use them,
I remember.
but some people do use them. And the question I had was there any point in time when you thought that I should try a separate session here?
Not with these parties. What was unique about this situation was that well, not unique. What was notable about this situation was that both parties were communicating, even though the communication was difficult, they were communicating with each other. They were relatively assertive in talking about what they were concerned about, what they liked, what they didn't like. And while they were expressing frustration, they weren't getting abusive towards each other or they weren't entirely shutting down. And for me, in that kind of a situation, the idea is also to facilitate dialogue, and separating them doesn't necessarily help that. Now, the reason I would want to do that is if I do notice that someone is either A, shutting down, seems like they're really disconnecting from the process, or if I had maybe a concern that a relational dynamic or something along those lines is making this person feel like they're not fully able to share. And obviously, there's no perfect formula for that. But if I have parties who are communicating with each other and are expressing in a way that doesn't feel overtly aggressive, then for me, there's no good reason to split them up. Splitting them up is really for me, there's something in the process or there's something in the demeanor that leads me to feel that this person may be more comfortable exploring needs on a one-on-one basis.
Thank you, Dylan. And at this point, we are going to transition to, if you have questions to our coaches, you get to ask them. If not, then we transition to, the coaches giving you, their constructive feedback on, on the things that they have seen you do during this mediation. And at the end, we call it a session.
I don't know if I have a ton of questions. There's a lot of things that I need to reflect on myself. There are certain expressions in terms of phrases. What are your thoughts on that? That I think I've used 45 times in one mediation, which is not a problem, but something for me to think of. I'd be really interested to hear a little bit from the coaches how, I mean, Peter, you've already talked a little bit about the ability to reflect, but and I guess I'd ask this to you, Caroline, because I've seen you do this with particular skill, and it's something I've been trying to get better at, is my ability to reframe. And I'd be really interested to see how the coaches felt, what they saw in my performance as mediator in terms of my ability to reframe, because I know that's been a weak point for me in the past. I can reflect well, but then I have a harder time moving to reframing.
So that was something I was going to to mention to you. A couple things. First of all, when you're reflecting, you want to use their words
Mm.
unless you have to reframe. So in the beginning, when you're just kind of reflecting, use their words. I noticed a couple times you kind of fill in. It sounds like you were frustrated. Well, did she say she was frustrated? You called the gatherings a party. A party is
Mm,
much different than a gathering, and Francis corrected that. But
mm,
that could have been an opportunity for Francis to be like, he's not even listening to me. So I
mm,
try to use their exact words. I reframe when I hear something that I think is going to bring them together, and I want to focus on that. Oh, it sounds like you both want a communication plan.
mm,
And then I try to reframe a little less because I find it kind of sometimes it breaks everything up. You want people to feel heard. And I definitely want to make my point with the reframing. If I see something I need to narrow them in and get them thinking about. If like, for example, I know one party is very interested in a particular outcome and the other party mentions it, then I can like, oh, I'll mention that. And then it makes everyone focus on it because I know that that's a potential for resolution.
mm.
Um, So I try to do it, but I do the reflecting a little less just to kind of
Okay.
keep things moving. Sometimes it breaks it up a little too much. It's good for people to feel heard. You definitely want them to feel heard. Um, but a little too much, and then it's a little, you know, stop and start.
Okay. No, that's very helpful.
And after
Um,
that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'm just gonna I'll just
No,
finish.
no,
There's
no,
one other thing. And I think I said this one other time. Jill and I thought you did a great job. It was all very good. I think Francis helps out because whenever he role plays, he's always looking for solutions. And
Yes.
yeah, and I love how Asta always like gets really emotional, so which I think is really good because it's very realistic.
Yeah.
Um, so I thought everything went really well. The one thing I want to mention was the you guys. I think I mentioned this before.
Yeah, I
They're not
know. I need
they're
to
not a
work on
unit.
that.
They're not a unit. So I've just switched over to each of you or both of you. Like those are my new phrases. And if there's a phrase that you need to rely on, I think that's fine because at least you don't make a mistake,
Yeah. Yeah.
So what do
No,
you
I
think
agree. And you've
about
given me
that?
this
Yeah.
before. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's it. Otherwise, I think I did a great job.
I think a little bit also to reiterate what Caroline was saying, Dylan, you have such a high emotional intelligence. It's so clear that you can read the parties well, you know what's going on, and you're doing it like instantaneously in your brain. But when it comes to reframing, and again, I'm just pretty much, I wrote it down, but exactly what Caroline was saying. Sometimes you're using words that are different than what they're saying. And
Mm.
that kind of goes to what I was saying earlier about like fear in a way of,
Mm.
are you now putting something in their head that they weren't already thinking? So
Mm.
not so much from this, like not so much from the sense of what Caroline was saying of like maybe Francis now is thinking, oh, he's not listening to me because he's using a different word, but more so he's like, wait, maybe actually it was a party, or now the other side is hearing, it was a party. It wasn't just a gathering. Like, so I just would be careful because you're understanding it and your brain is processing it so quickly that when you're saying it, what you're saying isn't incorrect necessarily, but when you're
Right.
reframing and labeling things, I would just be really careful with how you label them because that label could take it a whole different way when it's the same word and it means exactly the same. And what you're saying is probably correct also, but it's just use their, like, don't make up your own words. Take their words and
Done.
then, and you can use that in the reframe. And then the reframe becomes reflecting and it's all kind of one big thing, but it doesn't have to be necessarily two separate thought processes because that way you keep them on track. Like it's a way of keeping them together. So don't use your brain's working really hard. Don't make it work any harder than it needs to. Unless
Heard.
and then if you have both sides saying like describing the same feeling but differently, then use a third word to describe it
Okay.
when
Heard.
it comes kind of to that. But I think you were doing a good
Okay.
job of that anyways. It's a slip up too. Like and sometimes people won't even hear it, but when we're watching, obviously we pick it
Yeah.
up better. But it's so clear that your emotional intelligence is there and you know how to read these parties and you know how to keep them on track too.
Well, what you say makes sense though, and I think it's a good note that you never know how someone is going to receive something that could end up being a paraphrase, and it is
Mm.
much better to really focus back in on this is what they said rather than having, like you said, the accidental trigger of someone saying, well, he said it was a party, so now it's a party.
Mm.
Yeah, that makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense. Thank you.
Yeah, and sometimes when things are said too, and I'm learning this still, I think the less you say the better sometimes, where if they said it already and both sides are kind of saying it, then you can say, okay, so what are your thoughts? Or whatever that phrase is that you use to kind of keep them talking. But you don't necessarily need to take that pause and say, let me reiterate what you just said. And I know it's a skill that we obviously use in mediation and something that you're going to be cognizant of when you're going through it, but I just don't know that it's always necessary in that sense.
Okay,
Just something to
that's
consider
helpful.
as you go through. And I think the more you see it too, you kind of, and it depends on your party. Sometimes they love to hear what they just said. And sometimes they're like, I just told you that. Why are you telling me that again? So
Very fair.
just, yeah, just a matter of who's in front of you.
I'm going to go through I'm going to call it a process because in training we call it a process of option building. But I thought that at points you did really well in option building, having the parties involved in option building, what it takes to get them involved in that process of coming up with ideas, generating some uh, thinking about the ideas, whether they would work, whether they would not work. But I thought that you were very much aware of process building as something that you seem to do naturally. There are times when there was interference in that process. And I've written a number of times down when you would do something that would interfere in their process of coming up with ideas, evaluating the ideas, evaluating them without getting rid of them, but then ultimately coming up with a decision. If you looked at just what you did there, sometimes it was brilliant. It was nice. So I tend to divide what we learn when we're trained from what we actually do. I try to apply what I learned when I was trained to what I'm doing and just being aware that, right now I'm option building. And when I'm option building, there are certain things that parties must do. And they'll try not to do option building, but I have to do option building. But I thought you did. I mean, I could see when you were doing option building.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Yeah, one of the things that Urain race. Is that a good pronunciation of her name?
I think she said Ren would work.
All right, Rin. One of the things that she raised, which I had not thought about it as a party, but when she talked about it, it kind of made me to think because I'm like, as a party, it feels like everything is on the balance, right? So I'm looking for something to cling on.
Yeah.
And if you, as a mediator, you throw in any word that, let's say, for me, if you throw in any word, I'm like, oh yeah, now we'll
Yeah.
cling on to that,
Yeah.
Zami, Asta, any feedback from you all?
You did a great job. Apologies for being late.
All good.
Yeah, I like the opening. I really liked the open-ended questions, and I saw that you did try to reflect some of the emotion, and that's good. Because I mean, so in my thinking about this case and what the character's position would be, I want to echo also that I think like because Francis is like mediator, like he's being constructive. But what I was thinking is like, okay, my case thing said like she's divorced and she just recently moved there, and there's a lot of the talk about safety and security and all that. And I was like, yeah, she probably got out of a bad marriage with an abusive husband. So Francis would have come on strong, like, manly man, I don't care about you, stupid woman, blah, blah, blah. Then I would have wanted to go into caucus, and then I would have said, like,
Yeah.
I'm afraid, and he's triggering me and my abusive husband, and then but anyway, we didn't have to go there. But it is it is good that you tried to reflect some emotion in there because my guess is in this type of scenario, like they're going to show some emotion and they could be a whole bunch of other emotion underneath that, as far as why this is such an upsetting situation. But anyway, good job. I mean, you paused at a bunch of the different times to ask back the open-ended question about what things would look like and what they wanted to see. And so I really liked that. And so that was good.
I appreciate that. I actually would love to ask, if we have the time, a real quick question for you, Asta, because there was something, and this actually goes to Aureen's point, because there was a moment in the mediation where I thought, I don't know if I need to dig deeper or if I should let it go. And I decided to let it go, which was at some point we were discussing, I think the phone call solution. And we'd sort of agreed, okay, this is what we're going to do. And I asked both of you, how do we feel about this? Are we good to move forward? And you said, yeah, it's fine. And you did seem kind of uncertain, and I couldn't figure out whether or not what I should do is come back to you and say, is there anything we would need to go deeper on this? And I'm wondering, as Sarah, where your mind might have been, because I couldn't, that was the one moment for me where I was like, I can't figure out if I need to reopen this or if I should say, okay, we have a solution, let's move forward and see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just comment from like the being in the character bit is, from what I could see is like she was getting to be like kind of afraid of him and like didn't like that she was sorry she wrote to the HOA because it seemed like he just got even more, uncommunicative and not helpful. And so, I mean, I think that she could have been like, because we still haven't like built trust, right? And he still hasn't said like he didn't say clearly, oh, I can see how she'd be worried about her kids and I don't want to bother her. I know she's got to get up for work. Like, so he didn't do like he didn't openly say anything that he would be understanding. And they didn't talk about like, oh, like we're going to try to be good neighbors in the future, right? I mean, this is just kind of some kind of truce. And so, like, because probably ideally, like if she didn't have to be afraid and they could build some kind of like whatever, they could be like neighborly. He could be like, hey, you can come over to my party. So it was kind of, I mean, I think it would, from when I read from the thing, like she just wants to have predictable relations and to not have the noise and stuff like that, just as for, but I mean, this whole thing, like when he said like, oh, like she has to call him to be like, hey, you're going to have a party. Like it's risky.
Yeah.
It's not like an ideal thing because like then he would be like, oh, you're like cramping my style for having my parties and more. Like it was just like, yeah, okay,
Interesting.
but it wasn't like, we have the agreement and stuff like that. Like, why should she have to say like, oh, are you having people over again? Blah blah blah. Like it was just so that's.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like this could be okay, but this could be not okay, right? I mean,
Okay. No, and that's why I asked, because I could sense.
relationship and he
Yeah.
hasn't really acknowledged that that we can sort of go forward, so then
Yeah.
you could be setting yourself up for a dynamic if I've got to say, hey, what's up? And again, like keep in mind we've had zero communication for months now and all contentious, so that's
Yeah.
why I was just like she could say okay to kind of keep it moving but still have reservations about it.
Okay. No, that's
Dylan,
helpful. That's that
Dylan,
is what that's what I wanted to ask.
you did need to address Michael's concern in that area, so I thought it was very appropriate to try to get Asta or Sarah to. Sarah didn't seem to want to give in to anything, and she wanted it all her way. But Michael finally seemed to be struggling to say something or to describe some concern. I thought you did a really good job trying to address that.
No. I appreciate that. And I think that's what I was trying to figure out is if I missed something or not. So it's very interesting to hear what you said, Asta, because it kind of helps me also reflect on I felt that uncertainty. So it's interesting to hear your perspective as the character.
As the character, it was good that Asta said yes to, also at least taking the responsibility of informing me. Because when I offered that, I was either this is gonna go forward or I'm going to retract everything that I said.
Yeah,
You know.
I could sense that. Uh,
All right. Well, thank you all so very much for being here today. I know we are 8 minutes late, but I do appreciate you. I hope that, I have learned a lot of things, and I hope that, myself, Zami, Dylan, and Asta, I hope all of us took something.
oh,
And looking
absolutely.
forward to seeing you all again soon.